Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Michael Sandler, your host on Inspire Nation. If you've ever wanted to discover what matters most, then do we have the Waking Up in Winter show for you. Today I'll be speaking with Cheryl Richardson, New York Times bestselling author, internationally recognized coach, and the author of a really special new book, And Look at What Matters Most, Waking Up in Winter. And that's just what I want to talk with her about today, about a search for what really matters and making meaning in our lives. That, plus we'll talk about peppermint green smoothies, Medusa eyes, flavored honey, marrying vampires, the importance of the good wife, frolicking inner bucks, grandfathers for Scythias, and what in the world Mensa cats and toilet paper has to do with anything. Gotcha. So welcome to the show, Cheryl. Are you ready to shine?
Oh my gosh, I am. That is like the best, most awesome introduction I have ever had. That's very funny.
Woohoo! Then my job is
Wow.
done.
Wow. Yes. Good job, Michael. That's amazing.
So I absolutely love the book, and we won't go into your whole history today. But I guess we need to start with May Sarton, and what does she have to do with anything?
Well, May Sarton is who inspired this book. This book is different than my other books. My other books were all self-help how-to books, and this is a memoir in journal form. And when I was in my late 20s, I was at a book sale, probably at a local church or something, and I came across this book called Journal of a Solitude by May Sarton. And it was about this sort of intimate life of a writer, a year in the life of a writer. And I was a writer at the time. I mean, I wasn't published or anything, but I had this dream of writing. I had been keeping a journal since I was 12 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, oh, I want to get the inside scoop on what it's like to lead a writer's life. So I read the book and I loved it. I thought it was beautiful. I thought that I felt like I did get the inside view into what it was like to actually be a published writer and to speak about your work and to read from your book and to get, just live that life. And May Sarton went on to write a series of journals throughout her whole life, all the way through 83, when she died at 83. The last journal was called At 83. And I was inspired by that. And so when it came time for me to write my next book, I was really struggling. Like I had turned 50. I was really rethinking my life, rethinking everything, my work, as a lot of people do once they reach that, quote, halfway point. And I just had, one day I realized that I felt like I had written all I needed to write about living, about emotional self-care, spiritual self-care, physical self-care, handling our environment. And I just felt like I was done. And so it really scared me. I thought, my God, what am I going to do? I have this audience of readers and I've been writing books forever and I am a writer at heart. And my husband said, well, why don't you just publish a journal? I said, what? And he said, well, you love May Sarton. You've loved her journals. You've read them more than once. Why don't you just publish a journal? And I thought, I had two feelings, real excitement and terror. And I knew that because I had both of those feelings, it was something I needed to pay attention to. And so I went back. I knew I couldn't write a journal thinking that I was going to publish it and be true to the journal form. I wasn't mature enough in that way as a writer. And so I went back and I looked at the journals I had kept up till that point. And I looked at one journal in particular that I had been working, that I had started right around the time just before Debbie Ford had died, who was a dear friend of mine, a colleague. And I just chose this period of time. And I thought, you know what, if I'm going to publish this, I'll know by the end, but let me just go back, read it through a few times, start to edit it for punctuation and grammar and for context. Some places needed context for the reader. And I swear to you, Michael, I did that for about 2.5 years. I worked on just living with this book and editing it. And it wasn't until the day I hit send to my publisher that I actually decided I was going to publish it, because I did something I had never done before. I didn't have a contract. I didn't have any deadline for the book. I didn't want any promises. I really wanted to wait and see if I truly felt like it was the right thing to do. And it wasn't until the last day after I had made the deal and said I was going to publish it that I actually hit send and went, Okay, let's hope this works.
I am so glad you did. We've had, this is show number 770 something. I read a lot of books. It's basically a book a day. And a lot of them start to blend together and the waters get really muddied. And there's only so much you can teach people through the word. But story and living it and sharing the inner struggle, the inner dialogue, and what you do as a self-help, quote, expert, how you deal with this on your daily life, that matters so much more.
Mm-hmm. And that's really what I wanted. I mean, I had reached a point, even probably a year before I had chosen this journal, where well, that's not true. Several years before, as a teacher, I had really reached a point where I learned that people remember and learn from stories so much more than lectures.
Yeah.
And I just didn't want to lecture anymore. And I had been telling stories, sharing stories of people life experiences, my own stories of people I had worked with, and I knew even from a book, the world is very different now. We're bombarded with information every single day: email, text, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of that, and we get a lot of how-to stuff, right? A lot of like information that we have to. I keep doing air quotes. I don't know why. I'm going to put my hands in my lap.
I had just done an air quote. I think it's contagious.
That's what it is. It's like a yawn, right? Now I'm going to keep doing it.
Yeah.
I just felt so overwhelmed myself by information, and I thought, I just don't want to put more information out into the world. What I want to do is show people what happens when you listen to your life, when you pay attention, when you are committed to your own inner journey, when you are willing to question everything. And I think it's something that we not only do at midlife, but we do at different transition points, when we're changing careers or getting married or getting divorced or reaching the end of a decade or coming to the new year. Any transition point invites us to embark on a bit of a hero's journey. And sometimes it's a small journey, and sometimes it's a long, deeper journey, which is what this one was in Waking Up in Winter.
I never realized it until this moment, but this book is a double questioning, because it's clear in the beginning of you're questioning first off whether you're going to actually publish this. And then the book starts off with you questioning, you're overseas and you're going, maybe this isn't what I want to do or the way I want to do this anymore.
Right. And that's a tricky place to be in, especially when, and I'm not alone. There's a lot of people who have cultivated really successful careers. Maybe you've, worked for a university for 30 years, or you've run a business for 20 years and it's been very successful, and you're good at what you do. You know how to do it, and you're successful at it. I mean, you help a lot of people. And so in some ways, we're not invited to question things like that.
Mm-hmm.
But Debbie Ford said something to me before she died that really had a powerful impact. Along with, take more vacation, Cheryl, stop working so hard. She said to me, stop doing things that bore you. And I thought that just was such an odd thing for someone to say on their deathbed. And yet it not only stayed with me, it not only had a really powerful impact on me, but it has stayed with me till this day. I mean, she died in 2014, so it's still 3 years later, and it just became a really powerful benchmark. And that's a lot of what this book is about. It's looking at, what are the things that no longer excite me or challenge me or stimulate me or give me a sense of aliveness, and what will give me a sense of aliveness, and what new adventures do I need to take, and how do things need to change, whether it's friendships, my marriage, my work, whatever. Everything was up for grabs in this story.
Thank you for sharing on that. And it sounds like, Debbie, she also challenged you to be more an authentic expression of who you are.
Yeah, yes. And in some ways, that's really what she was saying when she talked about some of the things that she had done that bored her. Really what she was saying was, I was going through the motions, and if I had it all this is what my interpretation, I don't want to put words in her mouth, but my interpretation was, I've been going through the motions in some areas of my life. Please don't do that. Life is too precious to just go through the motion. motions. Pay attention to the choices you make about your work, about your business, the people you spend time with, the kind of work you do, how you do it. And she said to me also, I mean, it was a potent experience. She said, right now, Cheryl, the number of books I've sold, whether or not I was on the New York Times list, the number of Facebook fans I have don't matter at all. All I'm thinking about are the people that I'm going to leave behind, my son, and whether or not he's going to be okay, and how the relationships that I've had in my life that felt loving and important. Like, these are the things that I'm thinking about now, right here. And she died 2 days later, so she was literally on her deathbed. She wasn't long for this world.
I'm so happy that you share this, and it's so important because we have a lot of people listening to the show who want to get ahead and want to shift their lives, and that's what this show is about on many, many levels. Conversely, it's about having your priorities in order. And this was a time period in your life where you reevaluated what's most important to me, and you said, look, I've already achieved this level. Maybe I'll continue to achieve. Maybe that's not even what's important. Family, love, going on the inside, this deepness, this richness. You call it winter. There's a reason for that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, it wasn't until I had gone through the book probably 2 or 3 times that I realized, and honestly, it was during a conversation with my own coach at the time, where she said to me, you're in the middle of a hero's journey. Joseph Campbell talks about a hero's journey where you realize that the life that you're living is no longer working. It doesn't reflect who you really are, and yet you don't know who you really are at that point. But you just know that you don't want to keep going the way that you're going. And so you begin this journey, and the journey begins with a descent. And that's when you start to just see everything that isn't satisfying or isn't working for you, or the places that, where there are gaps in your thinking, in your life, in your experiences. And you see maybe the places where the wounds and the bumps and the bruises, and you start just really kind of dismantling yourself. I mean, you don't realize this as you're doing it, but this is what I'm saying now. You start to just dismantle, or who you are that brought you to that point begins to fall away. And it's a descent period, and it's scary because, and I'm sure you've experienced this yourself, Michael, where you make a change in your life, or you grow and evolve in some way, and you can't go back to the old life.
Oh, yeah.
But you really want to. Like, there are plenty of times where you think, oh, no, I don't want to go in this direction. It's scary. I have no idea where I'm headed. I don't know what I'm going to be doing. Let me just tiptoe back into the life that I had before, but it's too late.
Yeah.
And so that descent continues. And for me, I just reached a point where I kind of just had to hang on and say, all right, everything's up for grabs. I have to reevaluate my relationships. I have to reevaluate not only the work I was doing, but how I was doing it, and the different aspects, whether it was coaching or speaking or writing or consulting, like whatever it was I was doing, and even looking at where I lived, where I worked, where I traveled to, all of those things became a part of the reexamination. And so on the hero's journey, we go through that descent process, and then we enter the mystery. And that is the winter for me. It's the period where everything has died off, and you're left sort of bare, and you have no idea what you're going to put on next, and you've got to just stay in that place. It's limbo. It's the zone of in between. It's an invitation to just wait. And probably one of the biggest lessons I received from editing this book and revisiting this period of my life was recognizing that the more courage we have to wait, to sit with not knowing what's next, the longer we're willing to wait, the greater the chances are that our life is going to bring to us what's next in a way that's really aligned with ourselves as a soul, not as a personality, not as an ego, not as a human being, but as a soul. And the longer I waited, in that mystery period of the hero's journey, we're so tempted to do things like move, get a new job, find a new partner, get married, get divorced, like make big changes. grab a hold of something, I guess, in an effort to feel better, to feel fulfilled, to feel like we're moving in some direction.
Hmm.
But that's actually a mistake. In that period of the mystery, what you really need to do is just hold on and sort of sink more deeply into yourself. And when you do that, eventually over time, you begin the ascent where you rise up as a very different person with parts of you that are no longer accompanying you and new parts that reveal themselves and still feel a little wobbly and maybe uncomfortable.
Woohoo!
Yes, it's a
I'm
good thing.
it's a it's a great thing, and it's so important because so many people come to you. I'm sure they come to you, come to me, come to you as well, and say, I'm stuck. I don't feel like I'm moving ahead. I don't know where to go. I don't know how to proceed from here. And what you're saying is, be with it.
Yeah, I'd say good. That's a great thing. I'm so happy for you that you like embrace that. There's one point in the book where I talk about a conversation I had with Ellen, my coach,
Mhm.
when I said to her, I have no idea what's next. This is crazy. Like, I know what I'm leaving behind, but most people would think I was nuts to even think about leaving behind self-help books, for example, which is something I'd always done. And I said to her, I'm just really worried. I have no idea what's going to happen. And she said to me, your meandering has purpose. And that was such a powerful line in that moment. I can still remember like where I was sitting when she said it, your meandering has purpose. And really what that did was it calmed the CEO woman in me who wanted an agenda and a plan and goals and, uh, a strategic plan for moving forward. It really calmed that part of me and it allowed me to just say, oh, okay, not knowing and just sort of puttering around my life is actually a good thing right now. Let me spend time in nature. Let me stare out the window for an hour looking at the birds on the bird feeder. Let me look at the deer. I love the deer behind you, as you know. I mean, the deer play an integral part in the story in this book, and let me experience a kind of oneness with this animal that keeps showing up in my backyard. Um, and it was from those places, from that willingness to just sit with not knowing and to be present to my life, that some of the what was next emerged from there, like this journal, like publishing something I never expected to publish.
How were you handling, before she spoke with you, how were you handling the negative thoughts going on in your mind that are telling you all the reasons why what you're doing is 180 degrees from what you should be doing?
Well, I'm such a good, responsible girl, so in some ways, when I would think about, well, let me back up and say this. As a teacher and a speaker, a lot of times my schedule was planned a year in advance. So if today I'm feeling overwhelmed by traveling, I've got the next year to kind of figure that out. So the responsible part of me would just say, suck it up. I had very well developed suck it up muscles, and I
Hmm.
would just suck it up and get in the car and drive, go to the airport and get on the next plane and show up. And fortunately, I really, really do love my work, Michael. I love teaching, I love interacting with people. That's never changed. I just didn't want to have to get on an airplane all the time to do it. And I wanted to experience more a deeper connection with my students. I wanted smaller groups that were more intimate. I wanted to not have to fly to teach that way. But I would basically just suck it up. And part of what this book does is it really shows what happens when our suck it up muscles go slack and we just can't keep sucking it up anymore. And I'm really happy about that. I mean, I think it's a good thing. It's part of what happens in midlife. It's part of what happens, I think, for women who entered the menopause phase of life where, your suck it up muscles that were so well developed they just start not working like they used to. And so it became clear to me by the time I just felt really, really, I mean, for me, honestly, I can remember traveling to a city to give a speech and thinking, I just want to be home. And I thought, I really owe my students and my readers more than that, as well as myself. I owe myself a lot more than that. And that's when I began to pull back and to say no to more invitations to speak and to start to clear my schedule.
Which is absolutely a beautiful thing, it sounds like. Have you in the past, I hadn't recommended this to coaching clients, but now I'm thinking it's a brilliant idea, and I got to give all the credit to you, gone back and reread your journals and kind of done a rolling reread through life, because it shows you this golden thread of where you are, where you're going, and I think helps you with these things.
Yeah, it's really funny. In publishing this book and in doing lots of interviews the last couple of weeks in particular, there's been a lot of questions about journaling coming up and about reviewing journals. And um, I think sometimes the reason people don't keep journals is because they're not very nice to themselves when they go back and they read through about their lives. They can be incredibly critical. I know that I was like that. When I wrote The Unmistakable Touch of Grace, which was my Take Time, Life Makeovers, Stand Up, I think it was my fourth book,
Hmm.
it really was like a spiritual memoir. And I went back through 20 years of journals
Wow.
doing exactly what you talked about. I went back and I just went back looking for the evidence of grace in my life, those moments where something happened. There was like this divine power stepped in and turned me in a different direction. And that's really what that book is all about. It's all about experiencing the unmistakable touch of grace in your life. And it was through that process of working on that book and reviewing those journals that I became a very loving and compassionate presence for myself, so that I no longer judged the younger parts of me that made decisions that the older part of me thought were foolish, but instead I just saw it as part of my journey. And I think that's really important. You know, I've been very blessed to have spent a lot of time with Louise Hay and to have written a book with her. And certainly, you know, she's the grande dame about loving oneself and speaking kindly to oneself and developing. You know, I remember one time, and I think I put it in the book, one time she said to me, "You will be with you longer than anyone else on the planet. Why not make it a good relationship?" And I remember when she said that, it threw me back. Like I thought, wow, that's a very powerful statement. And for me, it really began with the writing of The Unmistakable Touch of Grace, where I started to go back and see my life through the lens of grace and be really loving and kind to myself as I read through those journals.
Woohoo!
And
You,
they have a lot to teach us about ourselves. Journal writing does.
you even, and I'm going to double back to journals in a second, but you made a rule, I guess, after Take Time for Your Life was published, to never ever insult the artist who was brave enough to put her words on paper.
Yes, yes. Yeah, and that happened one day when I was coming out of the post office. Somebody had sent me that they had bought Take Time for Your Life. They sent it to me and asked me if I would autograph it for them and send it back. And I agreed. And so I had come out of the post office. I got into my car. I had opened the package. I saw that it was the book. And I just opened the book randomly and I started to read it. And I caught myself. I was thinking things like, oh God, I can't believe I used that word there. Or, oh, that sentence was way too long. Or that wasn't really clear. And I just went, whoa, 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 stop. Like, what are you doing?
Mhm.
There, the artist in you wrote this book, had something important to say, and now you're criticizing her. Don't do that. Like, just don't do that. There was some, a wiser part of me that intervened on my behalf. And I made a decision right there in the post office. Thank God it was early in my writing career, right? It was the first book. I made a decision that when it came to my writing or any kind of creative endeavor, I was not going to criticize myself. I was going to be loving and kind and respectful. And I have to say, I've really, I've kept true to that ever since.
Well, it's so important. We have a show a day here. So I could get done with the show and I could rip myself apart if I wanted. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? Why didn't you do the other thing? But then I've got a show tomorrow. If I take any amount of today's effort on picking on myself, I'm not going to be able to get it edited, uploaded in the works, let alone think about how to live tomorrow.
Right. And, that was another thing that Debbie Ford really, a gift that she gave me years before she died. We were at some event together, some conference. It was a big conference, and we were both delivering keynotes to probably 3,000 people. And we were having lunch the day before we were both going to be teaching. And during lunch, I said to her, Debbie, I wonder if there'll ever come a time when I'm able to just get on stage and relax and enjoy myself and not worry so much about what other people think. Not worry about saying the right thing, doing the right thing, being effective, giving people helpful information. And I just said to her, I just wish I didn't care so much about what other people think. And she looked at me and she smiled and she said, "Oh, sweetheart, you don't care about what other people think. You actually care more about what you think. And what you're really worried about is how you're going to beat yourself up once you get off stage
Wow.
and you start critiquing your teaching in your head." And she was so right. I had just started doing the Oprah show every other week for the Lifestyle Makeover series. And I made a decision. When she said that to me, I thought, oh my God, she's right. It's more about how I was beating myself up for perceived mistakes or saying something that I thought I shouldn't have said or whatever. And not that I wouldn't sometimes get criticism from audience members, but it's what I did with that really hurt me, like how I would ruminate about it. And so I made a decision. I created this little mantra from that day forward that I used every time I taught a workshop, gave a keynote speech, did a television show. And it was, even if I suck, I'll love myself anyway.
Woo-hoo!
And I just used that. Yeah. And one time I was doing the Oprah show. I think it was right after 9/11. And Oprah had invited me to come on to talk about something around self-care in the wake of tragedy. And it was a live show. And in the middle of the show, we had taken a break and we were talking about something related to grief. And she said to me, "Oh, that's a great thing you just said. Remember that." And I said, "Okay." And so then we come back on live and we're chatting. And all of a sudden she says something to me like, "What was that thing you said during the break about grief? God, that was so important." And I went, and I froze. I couldn't remember. I knew we were live. And, Oprah being the consummate professional and the sweetheart that she is, just immediately went, "Remember you were talking about blah, blah, blah." And I went, "Oh yeah." It was like we were two girlfriends in a living room. But I remember thinking, I came off stage when the show was all done and I was going back to the green room. I remember my head went, "I can't believe you forgot that most important thing and you froze on national television." And I immediately went, "Yeah, but even if I suck, I'll love myself anyway." And that was it. I just dropped it. And, nobody ever said anything about it. It didn't matter. But I gave myself a break. And that's what we need to do more of, I think. And that's really what waking up in winter is. It's giving myself a break. It just happened to be for several months.
I like it. And you talk about in the book a technique that I thought was really cool to calm your inner girl down while you're addressing the audience, and that stress level is going up through the roof too.
That's right. It was Austria and London. Oh my gosh. Because I remember I was in Austria on Saturday delivering a speech, and then I had to get up at like an ungodly hour on Sunday morning to drive from wherever I was, Salzburg to Munich, which was like a 2-hour drive on the Autobahn, which was crazy, and then hop in an airplane to get to London. And we were delayed. It just was it was an example of the craziness that it sounds like so romantic and so exciting. It was incredibly stressful. And on Saturday when I was in Salzburg speaking, I was on stage and I was delivering a talk and telling stories, and my funny stories, nobody was laughing at anything funny I was saying. And if I told something that I thought was sort of poignant or sweet, there was just no reaction from the audience. And I remember thinking, so I immediately did something that you never want to do when you're a speaker. I got into my own head and I started saying to myself, "They don't like you. You really, I started doing exactly what we talked about, like making up stories in my head. I started torturing myself while on stage. And you don't want to do that, because the minute you start speaking to yourself, you lose your connection with the audience. And so I do have this little technique I've used for years whenever this young part of me gets activated and is afraid, because that's really what it was, a younger part of me. I just put my hand on my heart. And while I was speaking to the audience, I just put my hand on my heart. And that signals the message of, it's okay. I'm here with you. Even if you suck, I'll love you anyway. Just take a deep breath and reconnect with the people in front of you. And it really helped a lot. And it's worked in so many situations. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've, just before a live television show, when I've been early on in my career and I was really scared. It's okay. We got this. And you know what? Even if you suck, I'm going to love you anyway. So you don't have anything to worry about. And it's a very effective tool.
Thank you for sharing on that. On that note, talking about negative thinking for a moment, you say the quickest way to relieve the pressure by negative thinking is to talk about it, to give voice to the parts of you that are in dispute.
Well, and I think that's true for anything. If you're afraid, if you're engulfed in shame, if you're feeling insecure or vulnerable in some way, uh, particularly shame. I think about there's a wonderful song by Alanis Morissette about the shame spiral. I
Mhm.
think that's what the song is even called, Shame Spiral. And it is all about what happens when we get caught up in these negative emotions, and it sort of like pulls us down into a drain, and we get more we become more deeply rooted inside ourselves, and we naturally start to isolate, which is the opposite of what you want to do. You want to actually talk to people. You want to have you want to be able to find safe people who can really host your vulnerability
Mhm.
in a loving and respectful way, not necessarily people that are going to interrupt, tell you what you should do, try to fix things for you, but can just listen and can just be loving and compassionate while you um, kind of unburden yourself from the experience that you're having of your own inner terrorist, really, is what it is. I mean, we can be incredibly negative with ourselves, and it's like we've got this inner terrorist just making us crazy inside. And that inner terrorist convinces you that you shouldn't talk to anybody, and it's the opposite of what you need to do.
And I guess maybe that's part of your baseline is your default mechanism is when that inner terrorist gets going, you go quiet rather than get it out.
Yes, right, right. I think a lot of us do that. And instead, we just need to find a safe place. And I'll do that sometimes with my husband, Michael. His name is Michael. I'll say, hey, honey, can we just sit down for a second? I just need to run something by you that's spinning around in my head. I need to get it out so that it loses power over me. And he's usually pretty great about that. And he'll just sit down and just listen to me.
How did you guys navigate the vampire morning person scenario?
So what Michael's referring to is the fact that my husband is a night owl and I'm an early morning person. So my ideal scenario is to go to bed at 10 and get up at 6. I love the early morning.
Mm.
But I like seeing the sunrise. And Michael's ideal scenario is to go to bed at 6 and get up later in the day. So yeah, we've had to. I mean, early on, and we've been together a long time, almost 25 years. And early on, he tried to change. He tried to conform to normal people, us normal humans.
Hmm.
And every time he would try, he would just go right back to his schedule of wanting to be up, till the wee hours of the night. I think in some ways he's a bit of a hermit scholar, and he enjoys his quiet time. He's a writer as well. He's also published books, and so he likes to get lost in his writing in the middle of the night. So we've had to do things like navigate separate bedrooms. We call them the Queen's Chamber and the King's Chamber, and then we meet in each other's chambers. And we've made it fun.
Hmm.
And I mean, it wasn't always easy in the beginning, as I write about in the book. I mean, that was one of the things I needed to reevaluate was um, how could I stay married to or be in a relationship with somebody who had completely opposite schedules to mine. And we both had to meet in the middle a bit, but also needed to find ways to accommodate what each soul needed in order to live as authentically as we could. And we found ways to do that. We set up date nights, we set up date days, and even more important than that, Michael, I think I'm really blessed to be in a marriage with somebody who's also on a journey, who checks under the hood, who's committed to his own personal growth, and has really taught me a lot about being accepting of and respectful of my partner's um, way of navigating this world uh, by staying engaged with one another. We really do. I don't know what I would do without him. I say that in the acknowledgement section of the book. The very last thing I say is, I thank Michael, and I say that I have no idea how I could stay here sometimes on the planet without him, because he really is, he's a partner in every sense of the word. And sometimes partnerships are hard, and you have to navigate around tricky places, and we've been able to do that so far. I hope it continues.
I think it was a mentor of yours. I'll probably butcher the quote, but said something to do with the fact that your life partner will be the least capable of filling in the thing that you need the most.
Yeah, that was Harville Hendrix, who's written so many wonderful books. I mean, he's just so gifted. He's created, he's the creator of the Imago dialogue process. And it's really just a process of teaching people, anybody, not just partners, romantic partners, but business partners, parents and their kids, teaching people how to dialogue so that you create a safe place for people to tell the truth. And you use your relationships with others as kind of spiritual learning ground. And he said, I think he and I were talking about marriage at some point, and he has said this in his books and when he's teaching as well, that when you decide to get married or to couple with somebody, you can be assured that you will partner with the person who is least capable of meeting your most important needs. I remember when he said that thinking, you've got to be kidding me. Like, that sounds like a recipe for torture.
Yeah.
But it really is a recipe for spiritual growth. And when we recognize that the people that we're in relationships with, people who make us crazy, are often mirroring qualities that we need to either reawaken in ourselves, come to peace within ourselves, accept, express more. And that's the way that our relationships become wonderful schoolrooms, really.
Woohoo! What can you tell us about Mensa cats and toilet rolls?
Oh, I have to tell you, it's kind of a hard conversation. So I might only be able to say a little bit about it, but I know it's about my dear cat Poupon, who is woven in and out of the book, and he passed away in November, suddenly, unexpectedly.
I'm so
And
sorry.
yeah, thank you. I don't know if you knew that, but
No, because I was, by age calculation, I thought I was safe to go there. I'm careful when asking guests
you're
about
so
their
sweet.
pets.
Yeah, no, he was 10 and a half. So I wanted him to live forever, right? I used to say to him, you stick around until you're at least 25. And, but yeah, he, like a lot of animals do, dogs and cats, you often don't know that there's something wrong until it's serious, because they tend to hide.
Yeah.
And, because in the wild, I mean, and Poupon was really more of a feral cat I don't think he was a domesticated cat. We rescued him. Someone had found him outside. Um, so he just one day stopped eating, and we had him checked out, and it turned out that he had cancer, big tumor in the middle of his chest. And within 2 weeks we had to put him to rest. So, and I'm still in the throes of it. I mean, I'm clearly better because I can talk about it without bawling my eyes out. So, but yes, in the book I write about, he was a soulmate, and animals can be soulmates for us, just like people can be soulmates. I don't think all animals are soulmates. I don't think all people are soulmates, but he was a teacher, a powerful mentor for me and for Michael, and so, yeah, you're referring to the fact feral cats can be so smart and so strategic. And
We have two of them. We have two
oh, you
rescue
do?
feral cats. So we
Okay.
get you. And if I think back to Jessica, even more than me, you take her away from home from long, and she's going to boomerang right back. There is such a
Yeah,
special sacred connection.
it's true. It's true. And that was a big part of what I was missing from being at home was I wanted to also be not only with Michael but with our cat, because he was a companion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny, just recently Michael and I had a meeting with an animal communicator, and one of the first things she said after she told us how he died, she was very accurate, told us where the tumor was and what happened. She said, "This wasn't a domesticated cat, this was a feral cat. Did you find him outside?" And I said, "Yes, we rescued him. He was found outside." And she said, oftentimes, now she'd been doing this work for 27 years. She was like Dr. Doolittle. She was the sweetest woman. And she said, "I find that feral cats are often the soulmates in families." And she said to us, they're very smart, they're very strategic, And I suspect that he was a handful, and he was a handful. And so when you talk about toilet paper and Mensa Cat, I mean, in the book, I talk about a few different things that he does to try and get our attention or to get us up in the morning. And one of the things he would do is, he would do the typical come in, knock stuff off the nightstand. And when I started clearing the nightstand so I could sleep, I mean, with Michael, he used to come in and he would turn on the radio. And if Michael still didn't get up, he would turn up the volume.
Oh, very good.
And if that still didn't get him up, he would change the station to a foreign language station. I swear to you, Michael, it was crazy. So for me, in my chamber, he would come in, clear the nightstand. I'd go to bed with nothing on the nightstand. Then he'd come in, he'd go into the bathroom, and the back of the toilet cover was just that we had built our house and it just didn't sit exactly right on top of the toilet. So he would stand on it and go like this, and he would make this noise. And if that didn't do it, then he would start, shredding the toilet paper, and I would hear the roll and then I would get up and go, okay, fine. And so in the book, I talk about fixing the toilet paper roll so that he couldn't unravel it. And of course, he went on to do something else. And he brought so much humor and joy to our lives, as I'm sure your cats do too. Do they live inside your house?
They live inside, and Lumiere, he's the more skittish one. We met him outside a meditation center on Maui. He has just for the last 3 nights, it's like miracle of miracle, he's able to come to bed with us. We have 3 cats total. For him to come in the bedroom is because he's so delicate, so ginger and sensitive to energy. Is a miracle. The other one, Sir Meowsers, is an older. He carries so much so much energy. He was the birder on Maui that all the birds were afraid of. And he has learned that to get attention or his needs met, paper. Particularly if it's important papers,
of course,
is what he's going at. And he'll shred a little bit, but then he'll do what he needs to do because, well, clearly he's in charge.
Exactly right. That's really special when you can get a feral cat to come into the bed or to come. I mean, that really says a lot about you and your wife's energy and the love. And I just have such respect and admiration and love for people who rescue animals and who, I mean, that's a clear example of a soulmate connection, right? Where they really teach you. Like I learned a lot about respecting boundaries, respecting this Poupon space, my little cat space, and that translated to relationships as well, giving people the space they need, not trying to get them to do something they didn't want to do. I mean, he taught me a lot about that.
Yeah, what we've learned, I'm sure you've learned as well, first off, just the importance of really giving unconditional love and truly loving another no matter what.
Yes.
And then on top of that, watching your energy because they are you're an open book to them. There's no way you can hide how you're feeling.
That's right. And they're such mirrors of energy. So I have a good friend of mine, a dear friend of mine who's a vet who says to me, Cheryl, every time somebody comes in with an animal and they talk about the animal's problem, the animal's ill, I always have to treat the pet owner. I don't like to call it pet owner, but the parent, the pet parent. I always have to treat them because it's their energy that's influencing what's going on with the animal. And I think that's really true, for sure.
What did Poupon teach you by passing on?
What did he teach me about what?
By passing on.
Oh, by passing on. Ugh. I don't know if I know yet. Well, here's the big thing, that there truly is no certainty in life, that I can't control my world, that it didn't matter how hard I tried to keep him healthy and vibrant and alive. The soul has its path, right? It has its journey. And as much as I've heard myself say that, I've said that to many parents that I've coached or spouses that I've coached or partners or people that, everybody has their own spiritual path to walk, and you'll never know what someone else's path is, and they won't know fully what yours is. And we need to be respectful of that. I think that that's part of it, that I couldn't control his spiritual path, and that I couldn't force certain. I had to just surrender, and I hate that. I'm still at the place where I hate that, Michael. I'm really pissed that I couldn't keep him alive, and then there was something else, and that is just so poignantly and potently the power of unconditional love. There is nothing like our connection to animals. Like, they are spiritual masters, and there's a purity to the love that we experience with them that we just don't experience with our fellow human beings. And his leaving was a really strong reminder of what really matters, and it's that love. It's that connection. And I look forward to the time, and I hope that it happens. I think that it will, when I'll be ready to when we'll be ready to share our lives with animals again. I mean, I love them so much. I can't imagine not doing that. But I'm just not ready yet, you know.
I have a fun story I'll tell you off air because we got to let you go in a few minutes. But we lost a kitty just after our move from Maui, and how Kitty came back. We'll share with you when the time is right. But
Okay. Yeah, but you can't do that. Like, now you're setting, like,
oh, geez.
people are watching this, and I promise you, people are going to see this who have lost a pet, because I hear from them now. And so tell us. This is important.
So when we came over here, we had Lumi, we had Sir Meowsers, the two feral cats, and we had a third rescued cat, Koa-kun, from Maui, who we had rescued from a shelter. And we came back from Maui. Jessica was very ill, and she had mold toxicity poisoning. And a few months, and this is the mirroring, a few months after we settled into her parents' place for her to heal, Koa-kun, little less than a year old, was playing in the morning. He would jump out from behind things, put up his paws, startle you. And he was playing, running, ran up a chair in the bedroom, ran back down, ran down to his food, passed away.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Oh, God,
Gone.
I'm so sorry.
Sir Meowsers is over there licking and kissing and cleaning him. Lumi was there when it happened and was as if nothing happened. He saw something. He knew what was going on a much deeper level.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward 10, 12, 14 months later, somewhere in that time period. And this ripped Jessica's heart apart. Already sick, just came back, really bad, and just tore her apart. 10, 12, 14 months later, we're in a pet store, and they've just brought in some rescue kitties in there in cages. And she's like, why don't we go play with them? And I'm like, oh, no. And we play with them, and she likes one of them. We come back and see it again. We come back and see it again. But we're just going to play with it. There's no room in the house. We already have 2 cats. It's not our house. And then at some point a light went off that this cat needs to come home with us. And even if it's a really difficult situation for a few months till we're back on our feet, cat needs to come home with us. We eventually adopt cat, bring it home. First off, we couldn't tell until we got it home. Same exact stripes with Koa-kun, just gray instead of brown. A female instead of a male, loves the same toys, love being pulled around in a tunnel, love jumping out the same way, all the same mannerisms, same likes, same dislikes, came to his name. It was just wild. And we have come to, there is no uncertain conclusion. We kept on calling her a he. There's no other way to describe it. He came back.
Yeah. This animal communicator said that to us. She said she's experienced it herself, and that she said, sometimes you can invite the spirit of the animal back. I don't know if I'd invite Pupon's spirit back, because he was probably because it's too early, and he was so distinct in who he was. But I've heard that kind of thing, and it's really special when that happens. And I'm glad it happened. I'm glad for your wife too, because boy, it is just, I've never felt the kind of grief that I felt losing this little animal. It's really, it is heart-wrenching. It's like a piece of your heart just gets ripped out. But on a better note.
Yes. Please go. And then we got to wind things up here for you.
No, I was just going to say that, it's all of the pain and the grief is worth it for the incredible love that you get to experience, and the recognition that ultimately that's all that really matters.
Woohoo! First off, I've got to give one homework assignment to people today. So if people are listening to this, maybe because I said we'd come back to journaling, is there one homework assignment you give to help people figure out what really matters in their life?
Yeah, start keeping a journal. Like this just came to me. For one whole year, I kept a journal. Every night, I made a list of 10 things that brought me pleasure that day, and do that for a year. And that would really help. And you'll be surprised how inexpensive they are and easy they are. And it will reveal to you some of the things that actually really matter to you.
Beautiful. Where can people go to find out more and to find your beautiful book, Waking Up in Winter?
Thank you. If they go to CherylRichardson.com, you'll be able to find where you can order it. And you can also find how to connect with me on Facebook. And, it's under Cheryl Richardson. And then Instagram and Twitter is Coach on Call. That's my username there. But everything's at the website, CherylRichardson.com.
Fantastic. And if you didn't catch CherylRichardson.com, come on over to InspireNationShow.com and we'll get you over to CherylRichardson.com. Any last words of wisdom you want to share with people today, Cheryl?
Just make your inner journey as equally important, if not more so, than your outer journey. If you do that, chances are you're going to come to the end of your life feeling really good about yourself.
Woohoo! Thank you so much. This has been absolutely beautiful, Cheryl. I would love to continue this conversation sometime. You are sharing such important words with people.
Oh, thank you, Michael. Thank you so much. It was great to be with you.
Thank you, too. For everyone out there, this is Michael Sandler saying, be well, have fun, get waking up in winter, and begin finding out what really matters in your life today, and shine bright. Woohoo! Thank you so much, Cheryl.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like below. Also, leave your comments. Have some real fun with it. Subscribe to our channel where you're going to get more great videos, more interviews coming up. And check out our website, InspireNationShow.com. That's where you'll find tips, blogs, information, videos you won't find anywhere else, and useful and helpful resources to really help you kickstart your life and to shine bright. Thanks so much again. Thank you for your support. Like, comment, subscribe. See the website. Thanks so much and have fun. Of course, shine bright. Woohoo!